What's up, YouTube? We are back with our favorite time of each season. It's power ranking time. Stage 1 for VCT Pacific is about to kick off in just a couple of days. And as we like to do, we like to pretend that we're smart and we know what we're talking about just so we can get proven wrong like 6 weeks later. So what we're going to attempt to do is we're not going to do a tier list. We're going to actually rank them. We're going to power rank the teams. You know what? You can interpret it however you want because it doesn't matter what I say in this video. You're going to interpret the way you want anyway, but it will be kind of like a power level, but plus predictions for end of stage 1. I've said it. I've committed to it. It's 12 teams. Let's jump right into it. Let's start with the easy ones. All right. Great. Perfect. Done. It doesn't really matter what the rest of this ranking looks like, but, you know, we'll still pretend that we care. All right, the really easy. Is this easy though? When I thought about making this video, I thought that this would be easy, but I don't know. Okay, so basically, let's try to group them up, right? Like, candidates for the lower part are going to be like here, and I mean, I don't know where Team Secret's somewhere just floating, and Team Secret's just there. We do have reports that Wild Oreo might be playing like double duelist with Jeremy. Personally, that gets me kind of excited, but chat is telling me that I'm crazy for thinking that that's anything positive, so I don't know what to think anymore. But honestly, it is kind of between these two teams because I do think there's more excitement for DFM and GE. You know, what's actually funny is I actually think that there is a world where Zeta actually has a better placement by the end. Although I guess we can't really tell, huh, with the two groups because 4 teams will just be eliminated, but they won't have ever played against each other. So great format. But anyway, I think. So therefore, I actually think I'm kind of safe for doing this because they're not going to be playing against each other. But the reason I'm doing this is because I'm just not interested in, like, the thing is let's say Zeta wins like 2 matches. Is that really a crazy upset? I mean, yeah, if they beat like T1, it'll be an upset, but like, is that enough to get me excited that they're going to make it to playoffs and potentially go to Toronto? Like, no, not really. But there's so much more room for disappointment for this team. So I mean, listen, we didn't see much from kickoff. I will say they played against stronger teams at kickoff. I actually think Boom can upset teams. Boom can accept teams. Boom can accept teams. Dust9 looks good. And every like 5 games, Famous and Berserks actually plays like they should at their peak. And that means they'll get 1 upset and potentially 1 other win. So we're gonna go with Boom. And Zeta, I'm just not interested. I'm pulling just the craziest silver linings here to try to have some excitement for Zeta. I'm sorry for Zeta fans. I would be more than happy for them to prove me wrong. And like, they've got some good players like Depp and Shota, but we just didn't see them being enabled enough in kickoff. And I'm going to be really honest, we haven't seen enough from the coaching staff to tell me that it's going to change. So, all right. So that's that. Boom. They have players who can frag, not always, but they have players who can frag when they're playing well at their peak. They proved that they can have some good ante. Hopefully their loss to T1, as crazy as this sounds, was a lesson for them because they should have been able to close that out 2-0. And they try to remedy that a little bit, right? The choking issue a little bit. And that should give Boom a chance for a couple more upsets. I do think Boom's going to get... I think Boom will make at least 1 upset happen. And then when I say upset in that group, I'm talking DRX GENG, and we are still including PaperX in that group. So... I think there's a world that they upset at least 1 of them. And with DFM and GE, like, I think Boom could still win as well. So that's that. So now we got to talk about these 3 teams: Team Secret, GE, and DFM. I can't let my emotions get in the way. I know a lot of people are on the DFM hype train, but the wall has been closed, chat. The Ascent wall has been closed. the Odin might as well be 6,000 credits at this point. It's not bringing us the value, all right? That's not the only reason. I think DFM is still very heavily reliant on Mei. And they do have Gian now, and some of the other guys, like Akame was fragging out quite a bit at kickoff. They're still going to frag. I do think they're going to get wins, but I don't expect them to confidently make playoffs. Like, we think back, like, yeah, they had the good, they played well against Paper X, but that took everything in their power to do so. And hear me out. I know everyone who's watching this, right? Everyone's going to stop right here and start writing comments before you watch the rest of the video, which honestly, I think you should at least watch to the very end and potentially subscribe and like the video so then I can actually care about your comment. But the reason I'm going to put Team Secret higher is because they just do it. It doesn't matter if we don't think they're good enough to do it. Like, they just get enough stability to not be a terrible, terrible team, even if they actually are sometimes a terrible, terrible team. And Team Secret is going to be that team where I'm just talking about it, where I'm like, I can't explain it. There's nobody who studied any amount of science in this world that can explain this, but they just do. You're right, they didn't do it in kickoff. And clearly that's the anomaly. Like, they do this, man. They make us think that they're bad, and then they're not that bad. They're not great, but they're not that bad. And then sometimes they make us think they're great, and they're not that great. Like, Team Secret just somehow finds a way to just be not anything. Surely they are not that bad. Like, their flaws have been quite apparent for some time now. There's no actual logic, rhyme, and reason. I mean, there's no analysis behind this ranking in terms of Team Secret's placement, chat. But, like, I'll be honest, if you want my honest opinion, they're either 9th or 12th. Like, it's one or the other. And if they're not 12th, I'm going to put them at 9th. Because I don't think they're just going to be like, not the worst, but still bad. Like, they've got to be at least middle of the pack. On the flip side, GE, I am going to be cautiously optimistic. The optimism from the beginning of the year about the individuals still stands. I do think that all of them had enough moments, right, individually speaking, to consider that hype was not entirely misplaced. Now, the big question for GE is obviously going to be Patrick Hu. He is, I'm told he is in Korea now. Obviously, we knew that he had gotten his visa, which is great for the team. So the presumption is he should be playing even in week 1. And I mean, he's a cracked player who, what we're hearing from the team is that, like, he just doesn't care about the pressure and things like that, which hopefully that carries on into the actual matches. But at the end of the day, it's also like, this is the vision the coaches originally wanted. I mean, obviously Darion, like, super props to him for filling in whatever he could for the team. But this is what they originally went for. Now they can really pull out the comps and the styles that they were originally planning from the offseason. This is something that Patrick, of course, was practicing with the team online before the season started. And so I have to imagine that this makes him a bit comfy. And if Patrick really does start to frag out, then you have Patrick fragging out on the duelist role, and then you have Yudotan fragging out on the sentinel role, and then you've got, like, pretty decent clutch power in the middle. So I actually think they have really good potential to be that, like, upset team, right? The upset underdog team within their group. And quite frankly, I think it's between GE and DFM. And the reason I'm putting DFM in 10th is really because if I had to pick between GE and DFM to be the team that's going to beat each other to get to playoffs, I'm going to pick GE. Now, the one caveat here is that they actually play each other in the opening week. And so, like, Patrick, who just got here, he's only been in Korea for like a week. And if he does play, or if he doesn't play and they're playing with Darion, like, is that going to be the best showing for them against DFM, which is probably a must-win match? Yeah, it might not happen. It might be unfortunate, but I'm still going to give them the power ranking to prove themselves. If I'm picking between these two teams, I think GE has more potential to consistently upset rather than DFM. And Team Secret's just hanging out in the middle. That's the only reason DFM is 10th. The rest. the rest of the teams. See, you know, the toughest team to rank here is actually going to be this team right here. This bright pink team. What do we do with Paper Rex? See, I'm one of the few people, I think, it's weird that I have to say few people, but I'm one of the few people that I still think the pure firepower of Paper Rex is like, they should still be at least top 6, right? Like, we are basically picking who's not top 6. But then the other argument would be like, is the most recent Masters winner not top 6? No, they should be top 6. DRX also won kickoff and looks like they should have enough, you know, set plays and whatnot in the current meta especially. Okay, they're probably top 6. RRQ was looking pretty strong. Now, RRQ, there is that question mark of like, is there a roster change? I don't know. Like, it's been reported, but I was trying to wait as long as possible to make this video, and they're clearly just watching me record this right now on stream and not releasing it until I'm finished recording, so we won't know who's actually on the roster. But for those who have been living under a rock, the report was that Crazy Guy is coming in for RRQ in place of Estrella, which I actually think makes me rank them higher. I know, everyone's going to say old habits die hard, but I actually think so. And then Talon had some roster changes, and some people, I think that's causing them to put Talon probably at the 7th slot, but I actually think this probably makes them stronger as well. It doesn't make them as, I think, flexible or diverse, but I think it makes them more consistent, which is what they needed to consistently be, you know, top 4, top 6. Oh. For those who don't know, GENG also already announced, and then there's still reports of further roster changes. So Yeoman has been released, which rip, because I really wanted to see Yeoman get a long shot at tier 1. I don't know if he'll have the chance to land again, but we'll have to wait and see. But as far as we understand, he is currently LFT. He's definitely off the roster. That's been officially announced. And then Ash was officially called up from the Academy roster. Now, for those who don't know about Ash, Ash was a standout player last year as well in Challengers. He was actually part of the squad LFG Portal, which eventually became Fear X, that won Stage 1 of Challengers, and kind of just cruised through that season. Then, you know, the org and the roster had a bunch of issues, and they went through a bunch of changes, and they didn't do so well in Stage 2, where, you know, the current Nongshim Redforce, back then SPG, you know, finally made it through Premier. In fact, LFG Portal was the team that knocked the old SPG out of Stage 1 qualifiers. So Ash, and not just because of that, but like Ash was playing really well. Like, he was a very consistent bright spot of that roster. He was already kind of hitting his stride last year, and he continued to look pretty good on GENG Academy. But he is mostly a duelist player. He's played some initiator, but his main is definitely duelist. So the question is like, is he stepping in for Yeoman as an initiator? Some people are even going as crazy as to suggest that Ash might be playing duelist and Textures back to Sentinel, and Foxy9 is playing KO, which would be insane. Not the Foxy9 part, but Texture playing Sentinel would be the insane part. But then, for those who don't know, the reports are that Suggest is coming back for GENG. So Suggest was part of the new turn squad with, you know, Solo and Perry, the coaches of GENG who used to play, who actually went to the first Masters, the first International Masters, back then from Challengers Korea over DRX, back then Vision Strikers, and got 3rd place. And then he's still been around. He was part of DFM in their uneventful, well, I guess eventful, but 0-win year in the debut year of VCT Pacific. And that was unfortunate, but I still think he had a couple good games there too, whenever he was able to be put on a role that he was comfortable with. Now, he's been flexed around a lot. Like, he was originally also a bit of a double duelist, you know, Raze type flex player, but you know, he's played Sentinel, he's played initiators and whatnot. The big question is like, you know, has he been practicing? Has he been playing at the top tier to really jump right in? Now, this is all just a report, so we don't know. Presumably, then that would be like also in place of Foxy9, because that's what the report alluded to. But we are not. That is not finalized, so we don't know. I'm going to be honest. I know why people are saying that GENG should still be considered a top team, but I don't know if that's going to come together in stage 1. I'm going to regret saying that because every time I've said that about DRX, I've always been proven wrong, just like at kickoff where they won the tournament. So I'm not so sure, but I'm going to go ahead and say that, like, oh man, that feels weird though, right? I think RRQ beats Paper X. Surely now RRQ beats GENG. Surely they don't lose still if they ever have to play against each other. They're not part of the same group, but surely. And then Talon. You know what's funny is I think Talon definitely beats. Actually, I'm not so sure. I do think Talon beats both, though. Okay, so jokes aside, by the way, jokes aside, I think the realistic reach for Nongshim, I think is 3rd and 4th place. I think Nongshim's still gonna take some time to like adjust to the level of play. And I think that's okay. It only matters that they get top 4 by stage 2. So jokes aside, I do think like the reach potential of Nongshim is like either barely making Toronto or like barely not making it. But but therefore I'm going to have to put them at 3rd. We're going to see Nongshim at Toronto. There is a good shot, and I think that's fair. At which point, you know what's really funny? I actually think T1 will eventually become the stronger team again, but I actually think just within stage 1, I think DRX is gonna still be like stronger. I think DRX is gonna come out the gate stronger. I think they're gonna have just enough of a playbook to still be stronger, like for this tournament. Although I guess if it's like them two in a grand final, I would still rank T1 first. Yeah, I guess if I'm saying that, I should just put T1 there. I do think T1's not gonna look as strong in the beginning of the stage for everyone watching. But if we're talking about the end of the season, then I guess especially after seeing them overcome everything at Masters Bangkok, I got to give T1 the credit they deserve. So there's a lot of questions about Talon's new roster. For those who don't know, they are calling up Thai from their academy team, and then Killa from the Thai scene. Killa's been around for a little bit, and Thai's, of course, been on the academy team. And both of them are very good players in their individual right, but now this team is full Thai. So there will be calming in Thai. Cruz can call in Thai. He doesn't have to translate for anyone mid-round. So it should be much smoother. Now, I agree that this might make them less versatile in terms of comps and, like pocket picks and whatnot. But I think that matters less because now, worst case, they can still just deathball confidently as 5 people with the comms to, make it smooth and clean trades and whatnot. And when you have Primi and a couple others who are still cracked, maybe not as much as Primi, but pretty good, I think that's enough to make them consistently win now. Whereas before they just had to like win the matches that mattered, but then they were inconsistent in other matches. I also think this might bring Jitboys back to his older days where he seemed much more promising, because now he doesn't have to constantly be worrying about like understanding English and learning English and practicing English and whatnot. So I'm pretty optimistic about Talon. Now, the big question is do I think that style is going to be more consistent than GENG's core of Munchkin texture Charon? Obviously, I've watched Ash all last year. I think Ash is a great player. I think he deserves a chance to shine in Tier 1, and I think he'll do just fine individually. But the big question for GENG is if you are removing your initiator who has calling experience and was fragging out okay, yes, his util wasn't as good as Lakia, but to me, that tells me that you want to play a certain way, and you need people to fit that mold, right? We saw that with Foxy9 as well. You wanted him to do the things that Meteor wanted to do or was doing, and you couldn't make that happen. Now, there were a couple games where they figured out out how to work around it, where Munchkin was basically going around lurking with Foxy9 and they were double teaming it. And I think that's an option. But if you're now making roster changes, that tells me that you don't actually want to adjust to the players you have. You want to find the players that fit your mold because you believe that's the best way to play. Which, I mean, this is kind of hearsay, but it does kind of go in line with Solo's history as an IGL and a coach. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because obviously he proved that his ideas were very good last year. But I'm just saying that to me is the biggest reason they would be actually making a roster move. So then the question is Ashe, who's primarily a duelist, gonna fit that mold as an initiator or a sentinel? I mean, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced. For stage 1, I think it might be a slow process for GENG. I say this about every Korean team, and I'm proven wrong every single damn time. But yeah, and then for people talking about like RRQ and Talon, I mean, I think if you're a Talon fan, if you rate Talon higher than RRQ, I think that's totally reasonable. I just think RRQ is a bit more of a known value at this point. Also because of the roster changes. Yes, RRQ had a roster change, or supposedly, right? It's reported that Crazy Guy is joining the team in place of Estrella. I guess I didn't talk about this in depth. I actually think this is probably an upgrade for RRQ, because I've always rated Crazy Guy's IGLing pretty highly as well. Now, I've thought Estrella's calling was pretty good on RRQ, but last year, definitely, but even in kickoff, there were times when the decisions seemed to just be one beat behind. And I'm going to presume that that comes from the language barrier. So in my head, Crazy Guy shouldn't have that delay, even if they have the same reads. So to me, it's an upgrade. I also think Crazy Guy might be more comfortable calling even if he's not like in the thick of things in the action, whereas it seemed like sometimes, especially in kickoff this year, like that was one of the adjustments that RRQ made, where our Estrella was always like able to be part of the fight, part of the main core to make those calls. So perhaps that allows them to, you know, have Cushy and Monette still be the people who are like out there fragging. I guess I've actually never thought about this or talked about it, but I do question what Monette's role is going to be on RRQ as well, because one of the changes they made towards the end of kickoff was putting Monette on the Viper on Lotus and Estrella playing the Omen. And I think that was a good change for both, but I don't know if Monette will consistently shine in that role, because he does like to get aggressive. Now, the risk is he sometimes overheats, and which is why I think that change was good. But it's not like Monette was able to get much value out of being that flank and lurker and anchor. So it's not that Monette's a bad player. I just think he needs to be molded a bit more. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, chat. It pains me. It pains me just a little bit. I can't explain why. I do think if the Crazy Guy news is true, I think Crazy Guy is an upgrade. I do think that makes them, especially against, like, I think for Nongshim, the Crazy Guy change is actually a more difficult change. But I think overall, I just think I think Talon just simply now having the option to just say, screw it, we're going in and we're fighting and we're trading, actually just makes them stronger, as weird as that sounds. We're going to lock this in. It feels weird because I don't think Paperix deserves to be at 7th. I actually think, as some of you who watch Plat Chat found out, that there is a world where there's like a reasonable world where Paperix actually wins stage 1. So I actually don't think Paperix deserves to be in 7th. I think they're going to bounce back and everyone's going to shut up because everyone's so busy finally taking their chance to just dump on Paperix for some reason. I think they're a better team than that. But all in all, honestly, like I'm struggling with the 8th through 10th place here. I'm struggling with 7th, 6th place. I'm struggling with 1 through 5. I think Pacific continues to prove that it's going to be a very, very tight season and a tight year. And quite frankly, like any shifts, I think like plus or minus 3 ranks for most teams shouldn't be a shock. I'm just going to go ahead and say that for anybody, right? Even in your own rankings, I think like plus or minus 3 is so volatile for VCT Pacific, because like I think GE and DFM both have upset power, though I do think it's going to come down to one of them making playoffs in their group. Dude, I feel bad about it. Paperix is not a 7th ranked team, chat. Paperix is not a 7th ranked team. Just somebody just clip this and spread it, because I just have to say it like 5 times. Paperix is not. They're not a ranked 17. They're better than this. They're not ranked 7. Paperix is in no world are they below top 6. Paperix is not below top 6. It doesn't matter if they lost to DFM. They're not gonna be 7th rank. They're going to be better than that, but I don't know how I solve this puzzle. All right? Friggin' Professor Layton has to come out here and solve this for me because I don't know how I make Paper X not 7th. So we're just going to lock it in. This is it. Screenshot it. Do whatever you want with it. You know, as long as you come view my watch parties, then I'm fine if you want to hate on my power rankings. We will be watch partying all the games, not just the Nongshim games. We'll be watch partying all of them. So feel free to subscribe to this channel on YouTube to check it out on YouTube Live, or we're also streaming on Twitch. That's kind of the main platform we stream live on, so you can join us there. It's all at Will Chobra. And of course, as always, go at it. Have fun in the comments, everybody. Let me know what you think. Also, just as a side note, we do have a giveaway going on. So I have a chance to give out some Nongshim Redforce merch and potentially a box of Shin Ramyun. So if you would like to join in, you can check out the post on YouTube or over on my X/Twitter. And you just got to give us a little support message for the Nongshim Redforce team, and then you'll be entered for a chance to win some goodies from Nongshim Redforce. So go check that out. But I am curious to see. I'm curious to see who everyone thinks is going to win stage 1. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. That's going to be it for this one. We'll see you guys during the watch parties, and we'll continue with weekly videos to keep up with VCT Pacific in the future. And for now, I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one. All right, we forgot to do these, so let's just go through this ASAP and see what's what. DFM versus GE. Oh, it is a close game right off the bat. DFM versus GE. We're gonna come back to that one. T1 should still beat Zeta. DRX should beat Paper X out the gate. Talon should beat Team Secret. Chat, do I have to stay consistent with the Plat Chat universe, or are we considering these different timelines? Because like okay, fine. You know what? I chose my pie. I'll eat it too. So boom, I'm gonna go for the upset here for Gen G or for Boom, and then honestly, the first and last match have the potential to be the closest matches of Week 1. DFM, GE, and then Nongshim and RRQ is crazy. But Nongshim will win this one out. I am a little worried about the potential roster change from RRQ, but Nongshim should win it out. Nongshim is going to win it out. They might go to crazy overtime, but they will believe in the whimsy, and they will win it out. DFM versus GE. I want to vote GE. The only question is like, again, you know, incorporating Patrick back into the starting roster. I'm going to go for it. Lock it in. Submit.